Alright, hello everyone. So I wanted to make this video for quite some time, and I was just kind of waiting for, I guess, our list to get kind of juicy before I actually made a video about it. So it's basically the good, the bad, and the in-between for the JET program, living in Japan, and teaching English in Japan. So these things that I'm about to tell you is from my own specific experience. Everybody experiences something different. It's not always good, it's not always bad, it's just like everyone's different. So I'm going to share with you my own interpretation of everything. Okay, so for starters, the JET program. What I have, I'm going to do the bad first and then the good. I like starting with the bad. Yes. Okay, so the JET program, the bad things that I came across with it are as follows. So there's a lot of critical information that you don't really know until you arrive at your apartment or your city in Japan. So we didn't know anything about our apartment until we literally got here. And we couldn't look on Google to find it or anything. Like, it was really difficult. And even specific things, like if we can, like specific information, you can contact your JET supervisor in your area and like get information like that and stuff. But I found that was one thing that kind of frustrated me, is that I didn't know anything about who I was going to be teaching, where I was going to be living, that kind of thing, until like shortly before arriving to Japan. So that's one thing that was kind of like, man. And then, okay, another thing is subsidized rent. So I just wrote down subsidized rent could be more fair. And that the one reason why I'm saying that is because there's some ALTs out there who live in the outskirts, like farmland, there's nothing around them, and their rent is usually subsidized, so it's maybe $100 a month or $200 a month, and then they get to keep all that extra money for whatever. And all jets are paid the same, incoming jets, like for your first year, you're all getting paid the same. And then there's jets like myself who are in a bigger city, and we have to pay like near $700 or, yeah, $700 for rent per month. And that's all that money that we don't get to keep, right? So that's one thing that I found was a little bit unfair. Now, keep in mind, the people who live out in the farmlands or whatever, like they, like it's a switch off. You can either be in the middle of nowhere and get all this money, or you can be in somewhere hip and hoppin', and there's lots of things going on, lots of things to see, and you can have to pay for that, right? So I completely understand why that's as it is, right? But at the same time, I feel like they could subsidize our rent in the major cities more, like Tokyo and Kyoto, a little bit more. Again, I'm not complaining about this. Like, I do not mind paying a bit extra to be in Kyoto, but it's something that was kind of ringing in the back of my mind about all ALT in Japan. Maybe subsidization could be a little bit more fair. Okay, the next thing I have is Tokyo orientation. You go to Tokyo for, I think, 2 days, and Tokyo orientation is really, really awesome for meeting people from all over the world. But you have to go by their schedule, which means you wake up early, you go eat your breakfast, and then you do a whole bunch of hours of panels that kind of help you, kind of don't, and then you eat your lunch, which is cool, you get to mingle, and then you do some more panels, and by the time it's finished, you're dead tired because they don't let you adjust to the time. They literally, like, you arrive the day after, boom, you have to be adjusted to the work schedule. And then afterwards in the evenings, you get time to, like, go through Tokyo or whatever if you want, but by then you're usually really, really tired. So anyways, that's another thing that I kind of wanted to mention. Okay, what else? Oh, you can't get medical leave for a bad cold. Only if you test positive for the flu. So if you end up getting a cold that's really, really bad, like I had one and I could have sworn that it was the flu, I go to the doctors, I got tested, it wasn't the flu. You have to go to, what's it called? The doctors and like get tested, and anyways, you can either use medical leave, which means you don't use your Nenkyu, which are basically like the days that you book off for whatever, right? And anyways, if you don't have the flu, you have to use your Nenkyu. So those days that you're saving for the holidays, you have to end up using it for those days that you're sick. If it's not the flu, if it's a cold or whatever, right? So, and another kind of crappy thing about that is that you have to pay for the test, you have to pay for the doctors. I'm a spoiled Canadian where I don't understand the concept of paying for like at the doctor's office. But anyways, okay, so another thing about the JET program is there's no overlap between the successor and the predecessor. So basically, my predecessor, like it's an optional thing for ALTs. Like, I wish that they brought new coming ALTs at least even for a week to work with the ALTs that they're going to be replacing, because then they kind of know what's going on. Because there's a lot of situations where an ALT just like doesn't leave anything for their successor. So you go into your school, you don't know a thing about the students, you don't know a thing about the teachers, you don't know anything about anything, right? So you're really like bombarded by all this information at once in the beginning, right? And that's the thing about some of your schools will ask you to have lessons made, even if you've never taught before. You have to have a lesson ready. Like, I'm pretty sure they're willing to help you if you tell them that you've never taught before, but in most cases they're super busy and you can't really get a hold of them, right? So anyways, that's a whole other thing. So anyways, that's the bad that I got from the JET program. Now the in-between. No, I'll do the good. And then the in-between. Okay, so the good. This is the good, the awesome stuff about the JET program. They do all the paperwork. Literally, the only thing that I ever had to do was sign my signature, read over information, and just confirm it, maybe send an email or whatever. But, like, after getting together your application, it's all downhill. It's just, like, checking boxes, signing things, getting your picture taken, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, like, all the Japanese paperwork is done by them. I was taken literally by hand to the bank, to the post office, and I got everything set up by my supervisor who was here, right? So they literally do everything for you, which was really, really good for someone like myself who doesn't really know Japanese. So that is a huge, huge help. The next thing I have is you get to work in Japan and experience Japanese culture. That in itself is a huge, huge bonus and an awesome positive thing. Working in Japan is quite different from other countries. And, well, I mean, you wouldn't want to work in Japan if you weren't curious about Japanese culture and lifestyle, right? So anyways, that's just a good thing. You get to experience that. Next, Tokyo orientation. That is literally the coolest thing ever to happen, because you are surrounded by literally everyone in the room around you is from all over the world. And so it's literally as if the world came into one area, and you can talk to people and you can like see how people speak differently and how they like, for example, like the British have different words than the Americans use for certain things. And like, it's really neat just to be together and like talk with each other, right? And talk about our interest in Japan and Japanese culture and that kind of thing. It's really cool. Okay, another good thing is girls actually get menstrual leave. So this is super duper cool. I didn't know this. Apparently, every cycle, so every time you get it per month, you can actually take off 3 days if your period is really, really, really bad. And I think this should be implemented everywhere in the world. And yeah, it's super duper duper helpful for girls who have like really bad period problems. So that's really, really nice. Okay, next good thing is there are tons of holidays in Japan. Oh my goodness, every month there is a holiday. Every month you get a long weekend. And in between that, you get some holidays and stuff. Like, yeah, there's tons of holidays. And there's more. Like, there was just a holiday created last year, I think. And it was like Mountain Day or something to celebrate the mountains or something. But yeah, it's really, really good. So that you have that time to go out and experience like festivals, because they usually happen during that time, right? So that's when you can experience like authentic Japanese culture. Okay, and another good thing about the JET program is that you don't need to know Japanese. I took Japanese in university, but that was years and years and years ago, and then I took an education degree, so it just kind of like trickled out of my brain, and I kind of forgot a lot of it, right? So working here, I've been able to get it back, and yeah, you don't need to know Japanese to be here. That's super duper good. Okay, now the in-between for the JET program. Okay, you don't know where you'll be placed. This is the biggest like up and down when it comes to the ALTs that I've talked to in the JET program who have been here. They said that they either got where they didn't ask to be placed and they really liked it, or they really hated it. And that can change how you experience Japan, because if you're out in the middle of nowhere, it's going to be really difficult to like come to the cities and do that kind of stuff, right? Like even to see the doctors, you might need to take a taxi, which might take an hour to get to you or something, right? Like it really depends. And again, your rent could be really high or really low, or so there's all these different factors that's I put in between. It's both good and bad, because if you got somewhere that you didn't expect and it ended up being amazing, then that's good. Okay, the second thing is the pay. The pay is both good and bad in that it pays fairly well, but again, the subsidization of rent is a little bit unfair, and if you have a spouse or a dependent with you, it's going to be a little bit more tight, and well, if you're in like a city, and each year that you stay, they up your pay a little bit more and more. So that's another really, really good thing. So yeah, that's that. Okay, also, another thing I put for in between good and bad is you need a degree. So I think it's really, really helpful to have a degree, because then you've got all that experience, that academic experience behind you. But at the same time, there's a lot of people I know who don't have degrees, but they are way more than capable to teaching English in a foreign country. And I guess like for those kind of people, they'll have to go through another program, not the JET program. But yeah, having a degree is kind of in between good and bad. And again, Tokyo orientation, between good and bad. There's good and bad from it. And another thing is the people you work with in the JET program, so your supervisor. I've heard many different stories where supervisors do nothing but help as best as they can all their ALT staff. And I've been really super duper lucky that my ALT manager supervisor here in Japan has like literally done amazing things for us. Like they really, really, really helped us. But I've also heard that there are other ALTs, again, in other areas where their supervisor just does not care. They don't want to help. They don't want to communicate at all. Like, I don't want to scare anyone, but, like, those people do exist. For every good person, there's probably a bad person somewhere. I don't know. But anyways, yeah, so that's something to kind of keep in mind. But anyways, that is the bad, the good, and the in-between that I had written down for the JET program. Now the video is kind of long, so I'm actually going to stop it here and then upload this, and then I'll upload a whole separate one about, I have one, or a list about the school system, and then I also have a list from life in Japan. So I will make those other two videos so that you guys can see that. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. And we'll see you next time. Oh, and if you have any questions or anything, feel free to comment or message me or comment or whatever, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So, yeah, I hope this kind of helped. Okay, take care. Bye.